Take two. It's May 15th at 12:15 a.m. And I will be holding up the picture of my mate and I, and I'm going to go ahead and run over and hit an interview I had done with the author Milk the Deadly Poison. I'm just going to hit that, hold the picture for a little bit, and show you Brother R.A. meditating as I get ready for taking on wind companies and corporations and all this social miseducation where they value dead slaveholders more than an individual. So they get down the street from my house, they're going to try to put another 7-story building next to in Walden Square near Lincoln Way. And I'm like just cramming niggers on top of niggers. And we think slavery's over, but it's not. And I'm going to go back to 1997, an interview I did with Milk the Deadly Poison, and share that kind of consciousness. Well, let's move into our segment. I want to introduce another conspiracy, if you will. We're talking about Milk, the Deadly Poison. And yes, we have another Jewish gentleman on the phone line, Robert Cohen. Robert, are you with us?
I sure am. Good morning.
Good morning. Excellent. Now, I just want to be basic and be plain, cut through all the chase. We don't care about your academic accolades, how you've been USDA grade A stamped. We want to know a little bit about who you are before we get into this Milk the Deadly Poison. Who is Robert? How do you spend your time, Robert?
Well, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, I'm a researcher, and I'm also a writer. And I believe there's a conspiracy here. It's a conspiracy of ignorance. We listen to Madison Avenue. The dairy industry spends a few $100 million a year painting milk mustaches on people like Spike Lee. We know that 95% of African Americans are lactose intolerant, yet Spike Lee proudly wears his milk mustache. And we're getting a message, white and black. But you know something? You have a party, you invite 20 black people to a party and 20 white people to a party. You give them free pizza and free ice cream. 1 out of 20 of those white people are going to get sick, and 19 out of 20 of those black people are going to get sick. What have we got here? We've got lactose intolerant. That's the easy part of milk and dairy products. We got something called slavery in America, and we're giving our children, those who live under the poverty level, they go to schools here in New York. We give 500,000 African-American children free milk, cheese, butter, yogurt 3 times a day. They get it for breakfast, lunch, and snack. This is free nutrition because they're below the poverty level. And let me tell you about this milk stuff. The number 1 protein in milk, 80% of all protein in milk is something called casein, C-A-S-E-I-N. Casein is the glue they use to put a label on a bottle of beer. Casein is the glue they use to hold together the wood in your furniture. This is an allergic reaction people have. You make mucus when you eat casein. And you eat just what the average American eats, you're making about a gallon of mucus a day. It fills every organ in your body.
So, Robert, what you're saying is, what you do with your time is you write and you research. So you've done experiments with milk specifically to understand how it reacts inside an individual's body?
Well, yes, I have. And as a matter of fact, I've started the Anti-Dairy Coalition. I have some of the greatest doctors of America with me. People like Dr. Heimlich, the person who did the Heimlich maneuver doctor. I had Dr. Spock with me. Last month, the largest medical newsletter in the world, the entire issue was all about milk and all about the Anti-Dairy Coalition, giving people the advice that this does not do the body any good, despite what the government has been telling you and despite what the dairy industry advertises. There are a lot of very, very bad things about milk and scary things about milk.
So would it surprise you in the Boston Herald, Friday, November 27th, there was a headline,
97.
Black-white health gap, still a puzzle. And then the opening, this was Laura Meckler, Associated Press, Atlanta. Decades after the civil rights movement forced America to confront racial inequities, disturbing disparities remain on one of the most basic human levels. Blacks get sicker easier, stay sicker longer, and die sooner than whites. Can you...
Well, it makes sense. Blacks are doing something kind of silly. They're eating white man's poison. And this is something that affects white people differently than black people. We know lactose is something people will get gas and bloating and diarrhea and constipation from a sugar in milk. But we don't talk about the proteins in milk. Protein normally you think is good for you. But I'll give you an example of proteins. Adrenaline is a protein. Hormones are made up of proteins. And when you drink milk, every sip of milk has 59 different bioactive hormones. You don't want to send your 10-year-old boy to school every day with testosterone and adrenaline. There was a doctor's newsletter called the Townsend Medical Letter. 180,000 doctors get that newsletter. It's written by doctors for doctors. In May of 1995, they had 11 symptoms from milk and dairy consumption. You can find it on my book, page 259. They had mood swings, irritability, and depression. You don't want your kids to have mood swings, irritability, and depression when they go to school. You load them up with milk. You load these kids up with something that's going to take away their ability to learn, and it's going to keep them enslaved. And this is something the USDA knows and the FDA knows, that African Americans are affected much worse than Caucasians.
But doctor, we all have grown up. We've all been, I've been drinking milk all my life. I can hear my grandfather now. Ari, I've been drinking milk for almost 80 years. It's good for me. That's what I've been told.
That's good for me, right? I want to tell you about this idiot that many of you have seen on television. Hi, I'm Larry King. I just had triple bypass surgery. I want you to take garlic to lower your cholesterol. Hey, Larry, if you're the average American today, milk and dairy products, you're going to eat 161 milligrams of cholesterol, the same amount contained in 53 slices of bacon. You're the average American, you're eating the same amount of cholesterol from milk and dairy contained in 19,345 slices this year. What's happening to African Americans? They're dying of heart disease at accelerated rates. They're eating more of this milk and dairy and cheese. It's just concentrated hormones. It's concentrated hormones with... Oh, I'm sorry, Sister SDSD. This is pus. The FDA allows 750 million pus cells.
I can't eat my granola without my yogurt. What?
Oh, man.
What are you doing?
I can't eat my cereal without my milk.
Pus with hormones and glue, Sister SDSD.
I mean, is that true even of organic yogurt?
Sure. If you have a cow living in your backyard, you feed her barley and clover and corn and grass, her milk is going to contain 59 different hormones. Let me tell you about the scariest hormone.
Uh-oh.
There is one hormone in milk that in all of nature, you've got 500,000 different hormones, 4,000 mammals. There's only one hormone that is exactly alike between two animals. It's human and cow. It's in milk. It's called IGF-1. You make this hormone in your body, Sister SDSD, but it's exactly alike in cow's milk, IGF-1. It's the only thing that makes breast cancer grow if you're unlucky enough to get it. This is the key. This is a bigger secret than the cigarette industry ever had. And we're killing our people. So we're telling African Americans, drink more milk. We're getting my friend Patrick Ewing in New York, the New York Knicks, who's never going to play again, I hope. We get Patrick Ewing and Spike Lee and Naomi Campbell, and we get African Americans. I got a very sad story to tell you. We love FloJo here. I don't know how you felt about Florence Griffith Joyner. She won Olympic gold medals. But I spoke yesterday with the coroner. I spoke with Al Joyner, her husband, yesterday. This didn't kill. They said she died of positional asphyxia, which is what happens when you have a couple of cops on your back and one of them's doing a chokehold. They said she died of an epileptic seizure. When a person has an epileptic seizure, they put a shoe in their mouth so they don't bite their tongue off. Her tongue was intact. I have her autopsy. I got her autopsy. She had in her stomach After 14 hours after she ate her pizza, it was still there in her stomach. She was putting out histamines. That's the body's reaction to milk. When you eat casein, that glue, you can't digest it. And that stuff was in her stomach 14 hours later. Every organ in her body, according to the autopsy, was congested with acute congestion with mucus. She had a couple of gallons of mucus in her body. She was choking on her body fluids. Her lungs were filled with frothy fluid and mucus. Her tracheobronchial tree was filled with mucus. And this is what happens. Here in New York, we have 500,000 kids with asthma. And what are we giving them? Free breakfast, free lunch, free snack in school. We're giving them cheese. We're giving them this number one protein, casein, which is glue, which you can't digest, and the body freaks out, starts producing histamines, which make mucus. Every child that I've gotten off of milk and dairy products, the asthma always goes away. You have any kids in Boston with asthma?
Oh, too many children.
Oh, most definitely, Robert. We just had an article in last week's Globe. Actually, I'm looking for it. Oh, let's see. The date, we're looking at Saturday, November 21st. A breathtaking epidemic. And the first line is Kalia da Silva, apple-cheeked girl with swirl of barrettes in her hair, was sitting at her kitchen table, sipping milk, when her heart started pounding and her eyes flamed red. I mean, the first line, and now we're talking about within the Black District here in Roxbury, a portion of Boston, 02119. We're talking about cases of asthma. Now, the average citywide rate, we're looking at 11.1 cases, 11.1 per 1,000. That's the average for the city. But in Roxbury, in the zip code 02119, in Roxbury, per 1,000, we have 20.2 cases. The highest rate in the whole city of Boston is right in Roxbury.
Do you have a lot of poverty in Roxbury? Do the kids get free nutrition, free breakfast and lunch in school?
Well, the newspaper article talks about the poverty, and it talks about the environmental circumstances. They're saying there's a lot of rat hair.
Oh,
there's a lot.
That's nonsense. You are what you eat. If you go to my internet site, Not Milk, www.notmilk.com, if you don't have the internet, you can get it for free in the library. I've written a column about what this does to African-American children. This cannot be digested, this casein. It's glue, and your body is producing mucus, and you choke on your mucus. It's really simple. Eliminate this from your body. You know, everybody should do an experiment. Everybody in your audience should go 5 days, don't eat any milk and dairy products, and then on day 6, just eat one slice of pizza, or our sister Esty is doing, eat a cup of yogurt, and pay very careful attention what happens about 10 hours later. You never notice the difference. Pay attention to your body 10 hours later, because that's how long it takes. And if you do it every day and every meal like the average American does, you've got a constant problem. And if you eliminate it, very easy.
Now, we've had Anthony Browder on the show, who we talked to him about health issues. And what he says is we need to clean out our intestinal tract. He says most fat people with that rubber tire, that's backed up fecal matter stuck to the intestinal walls. And do you think the glue in the milk keeps the food stuck to the intestinal walls?
Well, I tell you something. It's very difficult to digest. When you look at Flojo's stomach, there's the truth. 14 hours after she ate her pizza, she had, the coroner says, she had 250 cc's. That's the size of a brick. He said 250 cc's of digested food. This wasn't a medical examiner. He was a stand-up comic. Because if it's in your stomach 14 hours after you eat it, it's not digested food. It's undigested food. And if it's undigested after 14 hours, you got a serious problem, my friend. As Flojo did.
What did Flojo's husband say to you yesterday when you spoke to him?
Al was having a problem at the time with Mojo, with his daughter. He said, look, I want you to talk to my lawyer. And the reason he said that is because they're considering a grand jury hearing. I spoke yesterday with one of the marshals, with Rivera, who is the chief sheriff.
More later.
And I spoke with one of the marshals investigating